Now, at 8.5, we're going to talk about the review of system of linear equations into variables. So, what this means is find the values of x and y that make both statements true, not just one, both of them. We're going to first go into solving by graphing. So, my first equation, x plus y equals to 5. Some teachers try to tell you do this by slope intercept form, get the y by itself. So, we're going to get that y is equal to negative x plus 5. Y is equal to negative x plus 5. And you can graph that because you have that the slope, I'm on the right m for slope, is negative 1 over 1. And then you have that the y-intercept is the point 0, 5. Yeah, that's fine. It gives you a point and a slope. Technically, I can draw the point 0, 5. I can move according to the slope, and I can graph a line. But when it's given to you in standard form, the x and the y are by itself, just go for it. It's going to give you, standard form is going to give you 2 points and a slope. The first point I'm going to think of is assume that x equals 0. So I'm going to cover the x term, solve for y. I'm going to say, well, if x equals 0, y is 5. Cool, that gave me 1 point. The other point is assume that y is equal to 0, so cover the y term and solve for x. X in this case is 5. He gave me 2 points, which we call the intercepts. The x-intercept, the y-intercept. I can plot those points, connect my points, and there's my line. It even gives me my slope from the standard form. I see that the number in front of the x is a 1. So for my slope, I'm going to go the opposite coefficient of x. So from the number of x, the opposite of it. So negative 1 over the value, the coefficient of the y, the number with the y. Technically, I have a 1 in there. So my slope is negative 1 over 1. So I have 2 points in the slope. Use any of those two to be able to make your line. If you want to use the point 0, 5, there's your point. If you want to use the point 50, there's your point. You can connect those 2 points and gives you a line. Or if you want to use the slope starting from the first point, the slope says go down 1 and 1 to the right. So there, I have a second point, right? Connect those points and it gives you a line, which is the same line we had earlier. So we saw. So there, looking at my second equation, I'm going to get my points. If x equals 0, I'm going to cover my x term. Negative y equals 4. I'm going to say y is equal to negative 4. That gives me a point. Then I ask myself, well, what if y equals 0? So I cover the y term. So I'm going to say, well, x in this case is 2. It gives me 2 points. I can already graph them. If I wanted to get the slope out of it, I'm going to say is negative 2 over negative 1. Remember, the opposite of the x coefficient over the y coefficient. Okay, so I have my point 0, negative 4. Have my point 2, 0. I can technically just go for it with those 2 points. Now my solution to this equations is the point where they intersect. The point where these two are intersecting is 3, 2. The x is 3, the y is 2. That's my solution. Plug in those values for x and y, and both equations will be true. Now, on graphing, if our lines intersect at one point, we have one solution. If they don't intersect at all, we have no solution. If it happens to be the same line, basically they intersect in many points, we're going to call that infinite number of solutions. Now, for my math lab, if it has at least one solution, so I'm looking at one solution or multiple solutions, we're going to call that consistent. That means it has at least one solution. If it doesn't have a solution, we're going to call that inconsistent. Now, if the lines are different, I see a red and a blue, I see a red and a blue. The lines are different, we're going to call that independent equation. If I end up getting the same line, we're going to call that dependent equation. So that's for you to practice on your homework. Let's take a look at this. We're going to look at substitution now. Now, for substitution, we want our equations. Technically, we could do graphing. I have one of my equations 2x minus y equals 6. I could change the second one as negative y plus x is equal to 2. And I can go at it. I can graph these. But we're going to learn substitution. Substitution, one of our equations, one letter has to be by itself. And I'm going to replace everything that that letter is equal to for that letter on the other equation. So basically, I'm going to rewrite the first equation, but instead of x, I'm going to write y plus 2. So I have 2 times y plus 2 minus y is equal to 6. I wrote everything in terms of y. All I did was, instead of x, I wrote y plus 2. All right, get rid of parentheses. 2y plus 4 minus y is equal to 6. Got rid of parentheses. I see that I can combine the y's. 2y minus 1y. I get that y plus 4 is equal to 6. Subtract 4 from each side. Y is equal to 2. Gives me half of my answer. For the other half, I'm going to look at the equation where x was by itself. And instead of y, I'm going to write 2 because I know y is equal to 2. So let me rewrite this as x is equal to 2 plus 2. So we can say, well, x is 4. Now that I have my two values, I'm going to say 4, 2. They come in alphabetical order, so make sure you put x first. So once again, all we did was rewrote one equation, in this case the first one, in terms of one letter, in this case in terms of y. So rewrite one equation in terms of one letter, solve for that letter, and then solve for the other letter.